To many, Donald Trump is the very image of a political wildcard, a man who speaks in riddles, breaks protocol, and seems to thrive on disruption. The media fuels this imagined, unpredictable figure with odd gestures, wild claims, and erratic decisions. An old man with yellow hair, provoking everyone in his path. But if you take a closer look, you may discover that behind this chaotic exterior lies a remarkably calculated and pragmatic mind. Trump doesn't act from emotion, he acts from strategy. Actions like sanctioning China, threatening trade wars, or abruptly leaving international agreements are not random. They are part of a deliberate pressure campaign, a form of strategic chaos. His goal is not conflict for conflict's sake, but to force change through disruption. This method has a name: the madman strategy. It's a psychological tactic to make others believe you're capable of anything, even the irrational. When others think you're unpredictable, they hesitate, they second guess, and more often than not, they choose to compromise. Trump understands this deeply and applies it not just in diplomacy but in global trade. Consider his threats to impose heavy tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada. At first, their responses were aggressive, but eventually, each returned to the table. They signed new agreements that were, unsurprisingly, more favorable to the United States. In Mexico's case, Trump didn't even need to impose the tariff. The mere threat was enough for them to tighten border security. In other words, Trump pretends to be unpredictable to achieve predictable results. He may not speak the polished language of the media, but he gets things done. And in a world of diplomatic showmanship, such raw tactics can be unnerving. That's the point. Trump seeks to reach what we at Inner Light refer to as the unseen reality, the truths that society is conditioned to overlook. He does not act wildly, he acts deliberately. Many still see him as a billionaire without the political polish, lacking diplomatic etiquette or legal nuance. But in truth, he holds a solid academic foundation in economics and business. Trump graduated from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, one of the most prestigious business schools in America. Before stepping into the White House, he built a real estate empire, ran dozens of companies, and weathered multiple economic downturns. He understands markets, he understands leverage, and above all, he understands how to control the game. His dramatic decisions like taxing China or withdrawing from multilateral trade pacts aren't emotional outbursts. They're business tactics, used to renegotiate terms he believes are unfair. In business, emotions don't matter, outcomes do. Trump applies this logic to international politics: destabilize the old rules, weaken the opposition's position, then enforce new terms that favor America. This isn't arrogance, it's classic business warfare, and he doesn't need affection, he only needs results. On the world stage, Trump is willing to do what others only dare imagine. He shakes the system, dominates the headlines, and commands attention. Every tweet, every insult, every sudden handshake sends ripples through markets and media alike. He is a master of media manipulation. While he appears to be fighting the press, he's actually using it. He creates shocks on purpose. One day, it's confrontation. The next, it's a deal. One week, he attacks China. The next, he holds out a friendly gesture. This deliberate inconsistency keeps everyone, media, opponents, allies, on edge. In the whirlwind of headlines, the public becomes disoriented. And when they can no longer distinguish truth from theater, Trump becomes the sole compass. This is not coincidence. This is targeted psychological warfare. In a world overwhelmed by information fast, fragmented, and often contradictory, those who control the flow of information hold true power. Trump builds layers of chaos to make his next move unpredictable. When the media can't forecast him, they have no choice but to follow his lead. And the more they attack, the more he dominates public consciousness. In today's political landscape, that's not insanity, that's genius. This is the new psychological battlefield. No weapons, no armies, only ideas. Influence becomes control, and confusion becomes a weapon. Trump uses this chaos not only to disorient America's foreign adversaries, but to force internal polarization. He splits the neutral into factions. And in the center of this engineered disorder, he remains calm, deliberate, and always in control. So, no, Trump is not acting erratically. He is a shrewd operator who applies pressure, manipulates perception, and forces reactions. If you still believe he's simply a madman, perhaps it's because you haven't seen the chessboard beneath the spectacle. His critics highlight every impulsive move pulling out of agreements, raising tariffs, threatening allies. But his track record tells a different story. He earned a degree in commerce from Penn in 1968, and by 1971 had taken over the family business. He rebranded it as the Trump Organization, expanded into Manhattan, hotels, malls, golf courses. His journey wasn't smooth. He faced bankruptcy, deep debt, but he always bounced back. With television shows like The Apprentice, he cemented a reputation. Someone who knows how to survive and win in crisis. Every major tariff he announced in China, Canada, Mexico was first legal, then deliberate, and finally negotiated. He didn't impose to destroy, but to bring others to the table. Tariffs weren't punishment, they were leverage. Even more critical, Trump identified a fundamental flaw in America's financial architecture. Since the US dropped the gold standard in 1971, the dollar has been detached from real value. The US prints money, borrows, and spends while production declines and debt soars. Trump didn't invent this system, but he saw its weakness and brought it to the forefront. His solution? Reclaim production, restore trade balance, realign power. America's rising debt, decaying manufacturing base, and massive trade deficits signal a deeper crisis. Since 2000, the US has lost over 4.7 million factory jobs. Entire regions, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, have declined. Americans feel betrayed. And that emotion is powerful. Trump channels it. He speaks not to the elite, but to those who feel left behind. And so he taxes harder. He imposes cost. He turns global trade into a battlefield of numbers, forcing countries to pay for access to American markets. It's not about anger. It's about forcing fairness. It's a negotiation where the US holds the gun of tariffs and dares the world to blink. That is costly signaling. Make your opponent believe you'll burn the bridge, and they will cross it to stop you. Vietnam, Canada, Mexico, the U-call were pressured, then negotiated. What makes Trump's strategy unique is this. He doesn't relax after a deal. He keeps the heat on. He returns to the threat. Because in his game, pressure equals power. He taxes not to harm, but to provoke reform. He cuts imports to restore domestic production. He reduces foreign exchange stress. He wants the dollar to reflect real strength, not just symbolic dominance. And all of this folds into a greater goal: to counter China's economic rise, disrupt their supply chains, and restore America's role in the global system. Trump isn't just taxing products, he's taxing a world order. So is Donald Trump truly a madman? Or is he simply the first leader bold enough to weaponize uncertainty, to make chaos a tactic, and to reshape global politics with the mind of a businessman? At Inner Light, we leave the judgment to you. But one thing is certain. In an age of illusions, those who seem crazy may just be the ones who see clearly.